Well, good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I hope you're well. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Those on YouTube, those on Instagram, those on Facebook, those on YouTube as well. YouTube, which is the key platform. Welcome to Talk and Sip Saturday night. And it's today's 24th of the 2nd. Actually, one literal month away from my birthday. Where I hit some big figures there, I'm trying to say I'm feeling younger each day, we have a very interesting show today, and the interesting show is just going to really be on Do Your Vote Matters, and just a review of local government election in Jamaica, which is presently underway, and hopefully it will blast off on the 26th of February. And some are saying, is it going to be a referendum of the Prime Minister, or is it going to be what inroad that the opposition party, Mark Golding, has and will take place? But there's something about what I wanted to talk about is why people should vote, because that is something very important. And we're going to look at the same time as to why people don't like to vote, And you can come in and please feel free, if you want to join the show later today, you will be able to have the opportunity. Reasons why people vote in election, especially local government election. Representation. By voting, you have a say in who represent your community at the local level. Let me turn down this music here. So and let me turn this down. Fantastic. Thank you for those joining me on Instagram as well. Welcome. Yeah. Accountability, is a second thing. Representation is one. By voting, you have a say in who represents your community at the local level. Government officials make decisions. Accountability. Voting holds elected officials accountable for their actions. When you participate in elections, you send a message to candidates that you're paying attention to their performance. Community development. That is something which is one of the hallmark of the whole thing. Vote for a voice for marginalized groups. Voting gives a voice to marginalized group within your community. It allows you to support candidates who advocate for the needs and rights of underrepresented populations, such as minorities, the elderly, persons with disabilities, and low-income families. Policy priorities. Election provides an opportunity to shape local policies and priorities. Democratic participation, setting an example, overall voting, and especially in this election, want us to encourage voting as much as possible, but there's one thing that I wanted to flag up, and when my guests come on, my co-hosts come on, Anil, the Prime Minister said something recently, and I was looking for the article, and he said, whatever policy is good for Jamaica, whether it comes from the opposition, the independent, or whatever, he will implement it for the betterment of the country. What's your take on that? And how should it be done? And let's have that discussion tonight as much as possible. And let me just welcome Anil. Hey, Anil, how you doing? But you're in the dark, man.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. You look like I don't know. Is it a man on a mission? It's like
yeah.
How you doing?
I am good. I'm trying out a different spot.
You're trying a different spot. Yeah. But anyhow, welcome tonight, and thank you for coming as usual. And what are we drinking tonight?
I'm just having some sparkling water.
I'll be very honest with you. I don't know. I've had Coke for a long time. I just having a Coke and I go into water. Just really felt very, really thirsty as much as possible. I wanted to say before I go on though, but I've been monitoring something which is happening in the States, and I don't know if you've been monitoring it as well. I know you have been monitoring the bit about Fannie Willis. Is it Fannie Willis and Trump? What's going on there?
Well,
that's shifted. She said, "I'm not the one on trial. No matter what you guys want to do, I'm not the one. It's the one who tried to overturn the election. But she seems to be on fire there. What's going on there in a nutshell?
I think I'm trying to remember around November time
Yes,
frame. So remember, it's Trump plus multiple other co sort of defendants as part of the case. Some have
yes.
actually pled guilty since, but one of the co-defendant signed put forth a motion.
Mm,
I believe it was around November, October, November, maybe November, December,
yes,
that alleged that the current DA, which is Fannie Willis, had a romantic relationship with Wade, who is the special prosecutor.
yes,
So there was testimony recently, and obviously you have the government plus the defendant asking questions, etc., etc. And then I believe it was Friday, a
yeah,
supplemental motion was filed because if you recall, if you watch any of it during the line of inquiry and
mm,
questions and back and forth, they asked question about when did this romantic relation start. They asked question around, how many times was it 2021? Was it 2022? And if you remember in one of the cross,
mm,
when I think it was Wade that was being cross-examined, one of the defendant lawyers asked a question to say if phone records showed that this relationship and you have visited the house multiple times, is the phone records wrong? And he said yes, phone's record would be wrong.
yes,
So now they're alleging phone records show, um, which is they don't get the full phone records. What they are able to do is get the location data, because remember, when you have a phone, it pings off a tower.
yes,
So
yes,
what they were able to show allegedly, because they haven't responded yet, that the amount of time that he spent at her place, which is where she was reside, is much more than they alluded to, and that the relationship started.
yes,
They allege that there is somewhat 2,000 plus texts and um, voice notes and all that kind of stuff. So it's
yeah.
interesting. So one has to wait to see what the response is going to look like. But so far, it's not looking good for her reputation at all.
Mm,
And who knows what's going to happen to the case? But if she, because remember, she was under what do you call it now? When you raise your hand, she was under. So anything she says on the perjury, she could be perjured if it turns out
yes,
to be true.
yes.
Um,
That's yeah.
so it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. There's a whole thing. Remember Bob Marley song that says, "If you live in a glass house, don't throw
Don't
stones."
throw stones.
Right?
Yeah,
And you got to realize a case like this, one is going to scrutinize every aspect of your life, right?
yes.
And I think that's what's playing out right now. We'll see how it plays out. The other thing that's big today, South Carolina is having their GOP primary. So you have Nikki Haley and Trump who are on the
Oh
ballot
yes.
there.
That's her turf, but it seemed like it's not going great for her though. It's her
Yeah,
turf.
that's her
Mm,
home. That's where she was born. She was the
yes,
governor there for I think 2 terms.
yes.
So it's going to be interesting to see. The poll has it that she will lose by 30%. I think she has come out and said she's not actually dropping out. She's going to what we call Super Tuesday. So it's going to be interesting to see how it
Right.
plays out. And then on the Democratic side, obviously Biden is trying to come out in public because there's a big poll that I think it was trying to remember the poll that came out and says almost 80+ % of Americans don't want a Trump Biden rematch. So it just tells you the mood of the electorate.
So it seems like the I hear voices are talking about Michelle Obama at the same time. I don't know if
I
that is
doubt it.
yeah.
It seemed more if something was to happen, just he's been in the news. Remember, he debated Ron DeSantis. Gavin Newsom, right?
Yes.
And he's talking about his. Remember, he went to go visit China to met
Yes.
with the president. So he's elevated his status. He said he's not running. He's there to help the president get reelected. But if anything needs to change, I would see him as the potential fill-in for Biden.
Yeah. Okay. Well, welcome to Cool Breeze over there on TikTok. How are you? Hope you're well. And Nadine Barnett. You're cooking and listening, so at least we are going to be having some food tonight. Normally we go for drink, but someone is cooking. She's cooking and listening, so she's going to send something through. Let us know what you're cooking. It's talk and sip, but you can still sip the soup if anything. Is a Saturday, isn't it? One of the interesting thing which has been happening over here, and I don't know if you have seen it, but it's one aspect of oh, somebody's cooking here beef soup. Oh, you guys are going crazy, beef Cebu. I'm cooking also beef soup. Oh wow, my days. I mean, last week Emeka was here with some thing, and these guys need to just throw this food at us. You know what I mean? We should call it cook and sip.
I know. Yeah.
Cook and sip. Cook and talk.
Cook and talk.
Yeah. Yeah, the Speaker of the House in the UK, and of course we're talking politics. The Speaker of the House was at present is having a no confidence streak in him, because what happened is that there was a motion. The whole Gaza thing is a big thing over here as well. Of course, you remember 13 countries voted against the resolution for a ceasefire. The USA voted against it.
They vetoed it.
Vetoed it, and the UK abstained. So therefore, that went, and therefore the UK now is trying within the House, trying to find some sort of wording, and the SNP, the Scottish National Party, put forth a motion, and the Labour Party with Keir Starmer, apparently they say he didn't want a rebellion, so he urged the Speaker, and apparently the Speaker did something or went for that resolution, went against precedent, against the advice of even his clerks. And as a result of that, all pandemonium break out in the House. SNP walked out, Conservative MPs walked out. I mean, you think that this is, I mean, some people say Jamaica is bad. This was worse than you know.
It's an interesting time, obviously, that we live in Silverburn, but you know, I think it's more that you have more cameras than anything else.
Yes.
Right. If you just go back and look at debates in the 19th century, right, they were pretty rough. Right? They were rough and tumble. The difference is that you didn't have cameras in the deliberations. You didn't have, you know, other than still photos. That's all you had, and some recordings. So I would imagine that, you know, we're just seeing history, or we're just seeing things play out in front of us that traditionally we would not have seen.
Well, I can say this. I went once to a mayor's question time with Boris Johnson when he was mayor. And he was there. He came in looking nice and everything. And within 2 minutes, his hair was all over the place. But I never forgot some English guys. And they were like some real English guys, you know. They were saying, off with his head, off with his head. And he just like in those movies, it's like, I believe that was what happened years ago. It was off with his head. You know, but anyhow, somebody said the speaker is in question, Starmer colluding and undermining justice against democracy. But anyway, I want to move very swiftly because I don't really want to stay too long tonight. The election going on in Jamaica is going to be on the 26th of February. And it's interesting because you and I, we are looking at it from the outside looking in. And sometimes I get, when I put my comments, sometimes I always get a few comments that you guys need to stay where you are. I never forget somebody said last week, you guys need to stop sending the guns. I said, what do you mean guns? I said, you're sending guns. I said, I'm not sending no guns to Jamaica. And then one person said to me, oh, you're not commenting about the guns. I said, I'm not a duppy or a gunman. What are you talking about? You know? It is very interesting. And but it is a very serious issue, and they're alluding to that the turnout might be very low in regards to this. What's your take on this election, and why do you think voting matters? And ladies and gentlemen, you can come in as well. Why do you think
Yeah,
voting matters? Yeah.
yeah. Obviously, voting matters. If you just look at the history of it,
Yes.
let's just take Jamaican history. If you just remember
Mm,
back from our civics day, only men with property in Jamaica under the British colonial system could vote, right?
mm,
And then I believe it was 21, and in the 60s it got changed to 18.
yes.
And there's a lot of strife, post independence. If you just see the voting, and I think in the 70s, voting was as much as 75 to 80%. So people
Really.
were engaged.
Mm,
And
mm,
then you sort of see in the 80s, pretty engaged. And then the 2000s is where you see a drop off. And one could say the average in Jamaica is probably around 37% to about 48% typically
mm.
turnout. And the voter registration, if I recall, has about 1.9 million. Um,
1.913. Yes. That's the
right.
last.
So if you just look at that number and you sort of look at the political affiliation, you have the JLP pretty much have about, I think the last numbers, I don't know if it's correct, about 600,000 plus. And then the PNP has similar, about 500,000 plus,
Yes.
thereabout. But it tells you, one, the insights you're getting, either people are disenfranchised with politicians and the
Mm,
policy, so they have decided to stay home. But to your question around, does voting matter? Of course, voting matters.
yes.
And if you just take the local election, in Jamaica, you have the municipality,
Yes.
you have the local government, right? They're responsible for your trash, minor road repairs, sanitation, health and sanitation, etc. These are the services that touch you every day.
Mm,
So you have to make sure that the local representative, whether you're a counselor, you're having a say in how they're going to enact and execute their policies, regardless of whether it's a political, whether it's JLP or PMP. Because when you take yourself out of the process, then you
mm.
don't have a say, right? So if you say, I am going to fold my hands and stay home, then you don't have a say. So whatever goes, you can't say, well, this counselor is not doing their job. Well, you had a chance to make your voice heard and you decide. So your voice is an important part. And the minute you decide to not exercise that right, you've given up your right to criticize the government, in my opinion.
It is
So
very interesting. Sorry, go on, Annie. Yeah.
no, so the other part to it is it may be that our politicians are not persuasive enough, right? So if you
Mm,
just look at both political parties, the numbers, they're just catering to their base. They're not trying to bring new people, new ideas in the party, right? And that's the struggle because if you look at it, we just talked about 1.9 million people, right, on the
mm.
voters in the last election. What 400 and something thousand voted for the Jamaica Labour Party, another
Yes.
300 plus for the PMP. That's what, about 700,000. So that means 1.2 million people stayed home, right?
It's interesting what you said, and I just pick up about what Miss Nadine Barnes says. I'm disturbed that so many persons don't plan to vote. And she said, I asked my students and practically everyone I engage with, some are registered and able, but say their votes don't matter. I've been trying to convince them of the importance regardless of party. And Nadine, I'm going to ask you the question. I presume you're in Jamaica as well. And back to the figure which you just mentioned. Um, and if we can, in the last election in 2020, could it be that the low turnout was because of COVID? Or could it be because 306,000 voted for the PNP, 408,000 voted for the JLP, total voting hour was 724,000, 37.85. And I keep harping this, trying to get the message really through to persons, because if you had a total electors of 1.913, near 2 million, and 724. What are we going to talk about when it comes on to a general election? and even a constitutional reform, you know, that's going to be a slap in the face, because that's not going to make much of a difference with those figures there. I mean, and then, as you rightly say, that you lose your sort of your slot, in a sense, to say
Mhm.
much, because now you're going to have a government which maybe 408,000 with 49 seats, because 49 seats, the JLP have 14 seats, the PNP have. That 49 seats with the 408,000 will determine how Jamaica will go. We're political people. Politics run our lives, isn't it? No matter whether we like it or not.
Yeah, and that's the tough part, right? So even if you look at the numbers, I think 2016 was the last general election, right? I think
No,
was
20,
it 20?
2020. That's the
No,
one that
no,
I
no,
believe.
I'm talking
Sorry.
post pre-COVID.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Before
Yeah. Yeah.
COVID was 2016, I believe,
Yeah.
was the last election before COVID,
Yeah.
right? And I believe the turnout at that time was in the 40s, right? So
Okay.
still low turnout. So let's say it's 37, and let's argue that there was a 10% differential because of COVID. Still super low, right? Remember
Yes.
what we talked about in the 80s, early 80s and 70s, turnout used to be 75, 80%, right? And it just tells me a couple of things. One, our politicians are not persuasive enough. They're not talking about the policies that are important to the people to bring them into the party. And so trust that when the voters hear their story, right, they're able to say, yes, I'm going to go vote for this person, right? And I think that's a big thing. So if you remember um, when you and I grew up in Jamaica,
Yes.
when there was political season,
In
um,
Ocherius.
in Ocherius, and every town had a
Yeah.
meeting every
Yeah.
day, right?
Yeah.
Every town from Spaldings, Brownstown, York Castle, you name it. Every place has these, stump speech where people will come out and talk about their policy. There was the manifesto that got printed.
Mm.
In school, they had both the manifestos that you could read. Um, but now you look at where we are, Silburn, you should say that our politicians should be able to reach our voters much, much more intimate, because you have TikTok, you have Instagram, you have Facebook, you have many different channels for you to tell your message. And obviously it's not resonated. So the hope for us is that this local government election, people are going to turn out for their voices to be heard. Because if you
Mm.
get to the point where it's a 30% turnout, that's democracy. In a world, even though only 30% turned out, 70% did not, but that's democracy. So therefore, the 70%, when you don't get policies that benefit you and your family, you cannot now come back and say, well, this person is not doing their job because you didn't vote. And I think
That's
that's why voting matter. But I think some of it
yeah.
has to do, maybe we have a generation of leaders that are not inspired, right?
Yes. Someone said the powers that were want apathy, so they pass through bills that enable their hidden wicked plans. A very interesting point Nadine just says here. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me tonight on Talk and Sip. What we're having is a very what should I say, a quiet discussion on politics and why people vote and why people don't vote. We're not going to get into JLP or PNP, whatever, but just looking at the issue. That's why we're not having any guests, anybody pushing any policies. But Nadine Barnett said, I just told a supervisor at a popular supermarket today that she should not complain about anything, since she said an hour ago that she will not be voting. Another shopper also chastised her and said, oh boy, politicians need to do more to convince persons of the importance of vote. I feel more will turn out this time, though. I did a post the other day, and I said, and I think Nadine also said it came on it. It was, how do we inspire, and how can people be inspired to vote? Because guess what? I just found out that the PNP just had their manifesto out a couple of days ago, and the JLP is supposed to put in theirs out today. And I'm saying, hang on a second, you
We're a
guys,
week. You're a week away from the election.
a week, Anil, it's 2 days. The election
Yeah,
is
actually, yeah, yeah, 2 days. Yeah, next week.
it's 2 days. The election is Monday. One just put out their manifesto. But I've always said at the same time, you don't really have manifestos for local government elections. It's normally for general election. But this sort of election, based on what people are saying, and people can correct me if anything, it is coming across like it's a general election where they're campaigning on national policies. And many people are saying that. So someone said they don't even know their local people
So
that they should be engaging with.
no, and that's the
Yeah.
challenge, right? There's, the person who put the comment about not inspiring.
Mm,
You're right. We don't have a set of leaders that are inspiring. At least,
yeah.
the Michael Manleys of the world, they had charisma. The Edward Seager of the world, they had charisma, right? Portia had charisma. Bruce, they had charisma. And I just think that this new group of politicians, for whatever reason, the people are not listening to them, and they are tuned out from their messaging. And the fact that they're going to put out a manifesto 2 days before a local government election just tells you. And
Yeah.
and some of it, I watched the local government debate. I think it was last week. It was an
Yeah.
interesting debate. Not much substantive stuff. I thought the format was weird because the moderator keep cutting off. Once your time was done, they'll just cut you off, and they don't let you finish. And the question I had as I was watching it, I'm like, but who does that benefit, right?
Yeah.
If the purpose of it is to have both sides talk about their policy, if the format is such where, yeah, I get it, you have a time box, but there are times when, Silburn, you have 3 words left to say to end the sentence, and the
And for it
moderator
to
jump in and cut you off.
and and for it to make sense, isn't it? You
Right.
want
Even in the closing moment, each party had their closing remarks. The JLP, when the guy had 3 words or 4 words left, and he just jumped and cut him off. I'm like, it's the closing, let it go. Right. So I think some of it as well is, how is the message getting out? Right. And,
yes.
obviously, I think, your local community leaders have to get involved much more. Um,
Mm,
the schools have to get involved to talk about the importance of voting and why it matters. I don't even know if they teach civics anymore in the
yes.
schools, right? So I think those are some of the challenges that you're seeing there, Silburn, is that people are just tuned out from the messaging. And the comment that I think it was Nadim made about the supermarket story.
Mm,
When I was in Jamaica recently, it was the same thing. I'd say maybe 80% of the folks that I spoke with said they're not going to vote,
yes.
which is daunting. And one of the driver and I had a spirited debate about he's like, no, he's not voting. I'm like, but why not? And I said to him, like, well, if you don't vote, how you think policies are going to enact it? He's
Mm,
like, well, it's not going to benefit me. Well, and that's the thing that you have now. And it's not only, I would say, for the people who sit on the sideline, then what?
yes. Someone
Right.
said, this is so far removed from people's realities. What are they voting for locally? Is it all a show? That is the question. And these are some of the things which are coming through um, from different persons. What I've been reading, just like what Nadine even just said. Election like a general election. It is. I'm picking it up like there is not clarity of leadership. There's not clear leadership whereby even with the electoral commission, I don't know the guidance. Okay, let's say America for argument's sake. I'm going to say this about America. America, the president is subject to the presidency. No matter who's the president, there's
Mhm.
there's something that they have to operate within. Even Trump found it out. Obama found
Mhm.
it out that
Mhm.
they find that even Biden, people are saying who is guiding Biden, the presidency is there to
Mhm.
ensure that certain things, and when I see like even I'm gonna say it, the Minister of Information, when I see him on Twitter, even before election, it is so colorful. It's all about green. They're not standing aloof to say they're governing the people. When I see like the airplane, the national American airline has just landed in Ian Fleming, and I'm going to talk about that later. Inaugural. They're saying yes, man. JLP do that. The breaking up the ground. JLP do, and I'm saying no. It shouldn't be JLP do that. I remember the time when they said bill by labor, that I was even O'Neill at Brownstown Community College. I was running for the vice president of the student council. The guys in from Ocherios, they did me bad because they were saying Westwood High School, built by CDL, St. Hilda's High School, built by CDL, and they're calling it CDLism. And of course, they said they don't want to get these Ochi guys in. Janice Budd, if you remember that Janice Budd who passed away from the radio, she won, you know. But it's a mentality. It is not about JLP build it or PNP build it. It's a government that build it. Well, of course, under the leadership of the governing party at that time, which is the JLP or the PNP. But there's too much um, colorism.
Yeah,
I don't know. I,
yeah,
people say I'm living a pipe dream for wanting a change, but
just remember, you live in a very polarized society when it comes to politics, right?
mm,
So you know, you never. I don't think you'll ever meet a politician that don't want to stay in power,
mm,
right?
yes,
And the politician is always going to figure out what's best in their best interest to get them reelected.
yes,
And that's like what they do year over year. So they sort of put that in the messaging themselves
and he
there.
just
So
froze a
and
while
that's
ago.
why
I
you see
guess he's gonna
everything
come
they
back.
do is like bill by
Um,
this, bill by that.
yeah,
But I said this to you before. One of the things that, if you remember, when I'm trying to remember what year, when Andrew took over from Golden,
yes.
um, he called the
Actually,
election right
actually,
away.
actually, he introduced me to Golding at Courtly when he was education minister. 'Cause we used to be buddies, you know.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he actually he called the election and he lost. And I thought he did something that I've never seen a politician do at the scale.
Yes.
He went across and talked to every Jamaican. And I remember there was a picture, and I forgot what parish, and there was a bridge. I don't know if there was a bridge there or there was no bridge, or the bridge washed away years upon years ago.
Yes.
And apparently, no politician has ever visited that community.
Mm.
And they have picture that I've seen where, yeah, politician will come to the bridge and then go back. And I thought that was a defining moment into the type of leadership the leader he could become. Is he took off his shoes,
Yes.
roll up his pants, and walk across and go meet the people. And in
Mm.
that community, you had people who cried because it's the first time they've seen a politician that visit their community.
Yes.
Right? That just tells you, Silver, right? The fact that you represent, and then maybe this is sort of part of it, because imagine you live in that community,
Yes.
right? And no politician ever visits you,
Mm.
right? And maybe that's one of the reasons that the politicians are not talking to the people. I remember where I'm from there, you know, before you'll have the local government person will walk
Yes.
and will go talk and see the people. They don't do that anymore. You know what
Yeah.
my mom said? They drive and wave.
Blow
They
on.
drive and wave, right? But back in the day, she would say they'll come, they'll stop, they'll have a conversation. You'll see them in the shops,
Mm.
having what we call their reasoning.
Yes.
You don't see that anymore. They said they just drive past, wave, and keep going.
So one Jamaica TV said most people would say they will not vote because at time it's dangerous to disclose your intent in Jamaican politics. You know, one of the things in the UK when we had the COVID, not the COVID, the Brexit, you know, and I'm a Brexiter. to the wrath of many people. You know, there's always this thing they say all the while when you do polls and all those sort of things. The last two general elections, all the polls were saying Labour is going to win the next election.
Mm-hmm.
The polls were saying that. David Cameron against Ed Miliband, Boris Johnson against Jeremy Corbyn, the polls. But there's always this silent majority, O'Neill.
Mm-hmm.
The silent majority that never give their intent and they never
Yeah.
speak to the polls. Those guys came out in droves, you know.
Yeah.
And I do wonder this. How can Jamaicans hear from different sides if when you go to in political meetings, everybody's in green, everybody is in orange? So how can someone else come in there to listen without feeling intimidated? That's a
Yeah,
big question.
it's a culture. It's sort of the culture. The interesting thing, the color is an interesting cultural
Yeah,
political dynamics. Because if you just look at here, you know, the Labour Party here, the Democratic Party, sorry, they
yeah,
have their symbols, right? The Republican, they have their symbols. But
mm,
you know, when you go to a rally, you don't really have people wearing colors, right?
mm,
They'll have signs, and I wonder, you know, as you know, these political party evolve, they'd
mm,
start thinking about getting to neutral colors. So to your point,
yeah,
if you have a rally, anybody could come listen. Vices, you and I might be challenged to go in a crowd like that because you might say, right, you know what, you're sitting on the wrong side of the football match. You're a Liverpool fan, and then you go sit where the Chelsea fans, and that's not going to be nice. Where you probably get, you know, all kind of stuff thrown on you.
yes.
And I wonder if that's the reason a lot of people don't engage the way you would expect the society to engage in civil discourse and different conversation around policy topics, etc. I wonder if someone should say, let's get rid of the colors.
Well, I'm always an advocate of, you know, even when it comes on to, you know, the MP who's maybe the MP for the area. I don't know, but what I'm picking up is that the colors that they have for their constituency will be fully green or fully orange. And I said, then when do people are able to actually, from different sides, if anything, go to their MP? I'm sure, you know, uh, good MPs will maybe facilitate it, but isn't it going to be intimidating? I would think, isn't it?
For the independents, you know, because remember, you have the independents, right? You have the
Yeah,
independent, like, for example, I'm a registered independent, right? So you have a
yeah,
significant amount of people. So I go read both policies. And but
mm,
to your point, when you're trying to engage in everything, you got to engage a color. It
yeah,
makes it harder for you to embrace when you don't really want to embrace colors. You just want to embrace policies that are in the best interest of your family and the country. And as you started off, that says, you know, the prime minister said anybody could bring forward policy. If it's a good policy for the
yes,
people of Jamaica, I'm going to implement it. I don't care who. But I
yes,
think we now live in a society where, you know, it's against your political survival to work with the other party because your job is to get them out of power, right?
wow,
So when a party win, you spend the next 4 or 5 years trying to
working.
figure out how to get them out of power.
Oh,
So
yeah.
anything they say or do, it
Mm,
will be slanted, or you know, it would be said, well, this doesn't work, etc. Vices two political party or three or four that are talking about the message. What is in the best interest of the Jamaican people? What is in the best interest to move Jamaica forward? Right? What are those policies? You know, how
yeah,
do you reform local government? Because I think local government in Jamaica needs to be reformed in a
yes,
way that benefits the people. How do you ensure the infrastructure, the road? How do you ensure, you know, garbage is picked up? How do you ensure healthcare? Right? Those are
mm,
all things that impact the local people, right? And I wonder how you get the process in place. are the systems in place to enact that, right? And
Yeah.
I think it's going to take a bold leader. I do believe
Yes.
it'll take a bold leader. But you know the interesting thing, and maybe we're not seeing them, Silburn. If
Yes.
you just go beyond just the Andrew Holness, the Mark Holden, the Dayton Campbell, the who are the next generation of leaders, right?
One was seeing the likes of Lisa Anna, Damian Crawford, Price. You got lots of young persons there, Rhoda Crawford, Terry Long. But you do wonder sometimes if they are being squashed or they are of the same irk in a sense, and they'll manifest the same way. And therefore, one of the things that I do find with politicians, especially Jamaica, they always use Singapore as a sort of prototype. But one thing they never talk about Singapore is about the integrity factor that Singapore had,
Yeah,
where they'll just cut them down.
yeah,
there was a zero policy there. Nobody's talking
yeah,
about that. They talk about the because they many people say they took the policies from Jamaica, but they did not take the implementation style from Jamaica.
yeah. There were zero tolerance, and you just
Yeah.
mentioned some name, right? Yeah, like Damien Crawford. I think
Mm,
he's a great statesman, and I remember I heard him said, and I'm probably paraphrasing, because he lost his seat,
yes.
and his whole attitude about it, he's like he was unwilling to pay people to vote for him,
Yes.
and he was willing to do things that he thought had long-term interests
Yes.
and things that will move the community forward. But he said people weren't ready for that type of politics, and
Mm,
that's the thing that people like Damien, I think he has to continue to push forward. And I think one other thing I think maybe folks are disenfranchised to, Silverana, is that
mm,
a lot of times, some of the people who run for representative politics for a particular
yes.
area, they're not from the area.
Yeah.
They're not from the area, right? So maybe some of these reforms need to be put in place. But Damian Crawford, I think, you know, he has some really great ideas,
Mm,
right? But yet still, when you look, he's not front and center driving policy. You just mentioned Lisa Hanna, right?
mm.
Lisa Hanna, when was it she announced that she's not running? 2 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah. She's stepping down.
Yeah, but you have not seen, other than things she's doing, outside, her business interests, etc. She's not engaged from a policy perspective, and you wonder that group of leaders, what are they're going to do, and the
Yeah.
question then becomes,
Yeah.
Silver, do they have to be a member of parliament to make a difference?
That's a classic question. Or you could go further by saying, do they have to be a part of one of the mainstream political parties to make a
Mhm.
difference? I
Exactly.
just picked up a couple of things here, right, and said some of the common reasons why people choose not to vote. We discussed this already, but I'll just break it down. Apathy. Some individuals may feel disconnected from the political process
Mhm.
or disillusioned with the available candidate or parties. They might believe that their vote won't make a difference or that politicians don't represent their interests. Now, let's juxtapose that, and you put it in a boardroom setting then, in business or so, whereby people fail to utilize their vote. You might get decisions that actually harm you or harm your position in your particular business place, in your council, wherever you work. To a certain, voting is so crucial, and it is a
Yeah,
part of the democratic process in anything.
yeah, and I think one of the big difference, though, is that in the boardroom you could use a proxy,
Mm,
right? You could put someone to fill in if you were not going to be there. In sort of political voting, it's one man, one vote, one woman, one vote, right? So you have to exercise that right. But I think the thing, so Bernie, if you just go back and look at it,
yes.
what our forefathers had to go through to get the opportunity to vote. Just think about that, right? Even in Jamaica, just remember in Jamaica, the only people that could vote was men with property.
Yes.
And even post, some people didn't vote So imagine just the formation of a country, all the things that you have to go through or your forefathers sacrifice.
Yes.
That in itself should inspire to vote. Even in the US, similar, right? Only white men with property could vote. Then blacks couldn't go vote. You have the 15th Amendment. Remember, women couldn't vote
Yeah.
until the 1920s,
And
right?
also the blacks which they got to vote, they use a percentage of them. Like a part of them were able to, the owners would use a percentage of them
Yeah,
to,
you're right. So
yeah,
when you go through all those things, right, and your forefathers sacrificed for that
yeah,
opportunity, that in and of itself should ensure that every election cycle you go vote. And you
yeah,
don't have to vote for the person, write someone in, right?
yeah.
But at least you vote, right? You show up and you vote.
You see, it's prudent and it's very important and leading towards the whole aspect of constitutional reform. I'm so encouraging person to say exercise. All right, and hi Natalie and Fiona, a couple of persons on Instagram there and persons there. Thank you so much for coming on. We're having a discussion, a review of the elections in Jamaica, but more looking at it as to the apathy as to why people vote, why they don't vote, and just a review. It's crucial. But the point here that Nadine just said, right, and I left it there. We live in a society where they don't want to acknowledge good policy of another party. That's why O'Neill am Jamaica first. Now, let's go back to what you said earlier when Andrew Jonas, and I did a video of this. Andrew Jonas said, I will implement any policy which is good for Jamaica for the betterment of Jamaica. And I said, I agree. But then I put a little disclaimer saying, but still have a conversation with the persons who was the originator and have a chat with them. And you and I was discussing earlier about crime. For a nation like Jamaica, where you have a Vision 2030 document, and that Vision 2030 document is supposed to say Jamaica will be a full-fledged um, developed country by 2030. Break it down on it, because you had set it out in a way. I think you set out the policy, you set out a way whereby all these guys come together to formulate a strategic crime plan whereby
Yeah.
no matter who goes into power, they can run with it.
No, so the interesting thing, right? So you had the Vale Royal talk,
Yes.
I think early on, where political parties will get together. I don't remember the frequency of it. And
Yes.
they'll talk about things because when you break it down fundamentally,
Mm.
I would say 90% of the thing these guys agree on. The 10% you're never going to agree because there's a philosophical differences there in terms of
Yes.
governance and how you do it. But one of the central issue, and if we say the central issue in Jamaica is crime, right? And how to manage and prevent crime prevention in Jamaica. Why
Mm.
not set up a, in the US, you have what you call a select committee, right? Where, the party who control the House will put a select committee and each party
Yeah.
will put people. So why don't you do the same thing in Jamaica where you said, look, Vision 2030 is such an important North Star for us where Jamaica should become a fully fledged developing country. The one
Yeah.
anchor around our neck is crime.
Mm.
Why don't you put together a working group of both political parties, get civic society, private sector to say, look, we're going to form this working group. Our goal is to find policies that are going to mitigate the issues that are causing crime. And we're going
Mm.
to pick people from the People's National Party. We're going to people from the Jamaica Labour Party. And then you get a Bruce Golden and a PJ Patterson to chair it. You get the universities that it involves, you get the church involved, you get the private sector involved, and give folks 6 months. You said, look, in 6 months, you guys come up with a plan for us to not just come up with a plan, how do we execute that plan? How do
Mm.
we partner with the likes of the US, Canada, and the UK? But it's a plan that everybody has their hand in creating.
Mm.
So therefore, whomever come into power doesn't matter because we all decide this is the right plan. And this is
Yes.
the thing that sort of give me pause a lot of times, Silver, and it's like for important issues, why don't bring the two parties together and say, hey, issues as important as this, let's go
Yeah.
form a working group, give ourselves 6 months, and come up with recommendations, right? And I think that's the thing that we have to get better at, and we have to utilize our elder statesmen, right? PJ
Yes.
Patterson is around. Yeah, Bruce Golden is around, right? Obviously, Portia is around, but I think she's sick. But you
Yeah.
also have
Bertrand
member of
might want those
parliament,
guys around.
virtual, you have member of parliament. You also engage the diaspora, so you create a working group, and in 6 months you have something and an execution plan.
And
And
and you know what? Even persons like Dr. Rupert Francis Rattigan and those guys, you know, that would be a master stroke to put away all the personal grievance and everything and say, okay, guys, sometimes they say, bring your enemies closer. you know, you know, let's work on something. Listen, I know Lester not here, but Lester always say that if you want to deal with crime, they can do crime seriously. I wrote a letter, which got letter of the day many years ago when Peter Phillips was the Minister of National Security, and PJ was the Prime Minister. And the letter said, bankruptcy of the wills fuel crime. Bankruptcy of the will, because there's not seeming to be a coordinated will factor to stem this crime. Because guess what? They said many people linking, man, many people linking, many people caught up in the whole thing, you know. If you so it's
and
like you
that,
need
that's
someone to come in and just cut away everything, you know, maybe a
yeah, and
UIC.
it just it just tells you also people are not serious. But
Yeah,
again, this is why it's super important for people to vote, because if you vote, and this is one of the things that I don't know, like in California, you could put these ballot initiatives,
yes.
right? You could put it on the ballot, and if majority, then it's enacted.
Mm,
Somehow we should have that option in Jamaica where you have initiatives, and you
yes.
put these initiatives on the ballot, and you force the politicians to enact those initiatives, right? And the good thing with these ballot initiatives in California, the politicians can't say we're not going to enact it, right? Once the citizens vote, they have to, right?
Yes.
And I wonder in Jamaica if we need something like that to force the hands of the politician, right? To be able to enact policies that will benefit the people much more than anything else. But at least it gives the people a say,
Yes.
and it gives the people a chance to say, you know what? I know how my voice is going to be heard, because when
Mm.
I put my name behind an initiative and it's passed, the politician have to enact it. So
I
it's the will
believe
of the people.
the will of the people. I believe that the will of the people, unfortunately, is not coming through, and that is why you have this lackluster towards people wanting to vote. Disillusionment. That's the second one I have. Disillusionment. People may feel disillusioned with the political system due to perceived corruptions, lack of transparency, or broken promises by elected officials. Disillusionment can lead to a sense of resignation and a decision not to participate in elections. So, therefore, as I said before, how do we inspire people? Well, clearly they are not inspired. Definitely not inspired. And how can we inspire them? They must feel like their voice is being heard and acted upon. It is not good to say, I hear you, I hear you. It must say, I heard you, and this is what I did. Just like Singapore said, we took the policy from Jamaica, but we didn't just take the policy. We utilized it and we implemented it, and we made sure integrity was a key factor in the whole scheme of things. Now, as we said tonight, this is not about PNP or JLP. This is about Jamaica. I know we can see a better Jamaica. I look at it again by saying the independent parties which are out there. There are so many different independent parties. We had a gentleman came last week, and I started to reflect, and I said, but nobody's going to talk with these independent parties unless they're working together in a strategic way, isn't it, Anil? Because they're all over the place.
Yeah, and we know they've had the NDM is probably one of the most credible party that came out, and once Bruce Golden left that, it just fell apart. There's the
Well, he sang his Sankey and
Tolerant.
he sang the Sankey and he came back home. Innit?
Yeah, there's a Rastafarian one. There's UIC. There's this, but all these
UIC
guys are saying,
is online now. UIC is actually commenting. One love.
yeah.
One.
So they've created party, and I get they're saying, hey, we're disenfranchised with the current political party. That may be
Yes.
so. Then therefore you have 1.2 million people. Because if we just talked about 700 and something thousand people vote, then
Yes.
go convince those 1.2 million people with your policy, right?
Bingo.
What is it that you're going to do, right, to enact those? And you have to show people, right?
Yeah.
You come in and say, hey, I'm a new party and I am going to do this, this, this. They've heard that song before. They've heard that song many times where politicians have said, I am going to do XYZ and never do it, right? So now you have to show the people. You have to show up where the people show up. So if I'm a new party, go door to door. Go
So
sit in people's living room and tell them why. You don't need a lot of money, right? If you're a new political party and you're the leader of the political party and you have never drive east to west, north to south
yes.
in Jamaica and visit every parish, every county, every city, then you're not serious.
Well, I'm jumping into coming here now because if I was a politician, I was in Jamaica and I did the figures. I never forget Simon Woolley, who was my mentor when I shadowed a couple of MPs in the UK. Operation Black Vote, something like Operation Black Vote, need to go to Jamaica, whereby you educate persons politically. I shadowed a few conservative MPs, but one thing he always said to me: work the figures. What are the figures saying? You just said it a while ago. 724,000 people voted for the PNP and the JLP. That left
Mhm.
1.2 left out there. So
Yeah.
therefore, you're not going to, I don't think they're going to get
No, you're not
the
going to
green.
convince that.
You're
Yeah.
not going to get the green and the orange. Those
So,
guys
so
are already sold off.
if you even change it a little bit, right? Say we talk
Yeah.
about it. There's about 500,000 people that are JLP member. There's another, for whatever number. So 1 million people are affiliated to a
Yes.
party.
Yes.
There's another million out there that
Yes.
is not party affiliated, right? If you try and your message resonate and you could get, 700,000 people, you become the ruling party, but your message have to resonate and you have to be able to persuade the people in showing me and convincing
Yes.
why, right?
It has got
The one thing that
yes.
when I did notice, and I've said it before, and when I read Edward Siaga book, because I always try to read every one of the leaders' book, because you learn things that you just never know.
Mm.
And I didn't realize that he went and lived somewhere, I think in Linstead or something like that, in a board house for like 60 years,
Mm.
right? Most of the people in that community didn't really know who he was until later on in his stint there, because he wants to learn from the people. He wants to be there, right? And a lot of times, our politician, if you want to go convince, you have to go do that, right?
Mm.
So this is an interesting response, right? And that's one of the
I lost you there, O'Neill. You went muted, O'Neill. You went muted. You're on mute. O'Neill, you're on mute. Sorry, 1 second.
sorry, no.
Wait, go on.
I said
Sorry.
you got to show people. You
Mm.
got to show people why they should vote for you. Telling them the system is broken. They've heard that song a long time. They've heard it, right? Go back to the NDM and go back to their messaging, right? So they've heard it. You have to show people that your policy is going to change their life. If you're not persuasive enough, then nobody's going to vote for you, right? That's what you got to do.
When David Cameron won that election there, I was at the hustings. I'm a conservative paying person in the UK. I voted for all the different recent elections for party leaders directly. I'm one of those people that people say, who are these guys that keep voting in these guys all the while? I'm one of those guys. He can shoot me down, But I voted for David Cameron. I was at Westminster Central Hall, and he was against David Davis. And David Cameron spoke fluently without any script or anything. And he was convincing. He was convincing, and that's why he won. That's why he won that election. And likewise, it follows through. But so therefore, as you rightly say, there must be something that Joseph Patterson, something that UJ, something that they have to deposit into the people, because that is what is going to work. Because as someone just said right here, Nadine Barnett, thank you, Nadine, for staying with us. Independents are all over the place, but many persons don't take them seriously. They're also not liked by their original party because they take away the vote count. So therefore, ignore all the JLP and the PNP.
Yes.
Move towards the people who feel disenfranchised.
Yes.
Remember the word that I said a while ago? Apathy,
Yeah.
disillusionment, perceived lack of impact. Some individuals may believe that their vote won't have a significant impact. So therefore, it is your job, the independents, to go there and say your vote will have an impact. Logistical barriers such as long times at polling station, difficulty obtaining time off from work, cynicism towards the political process, of distrust of politicians and government, inspire them to say that you will make a difference. Feeling uninformed. People are feeling uninformed. People are just feeling that these guys are just taking them for a ride.
Yeah, yeah, and the thing is that if you want to create a political movement,
Mm,
um, and you focus on those 1 million who, because you're not going to convince that those folks who are diehard one color or the other,
yeah,
right? But you got to convince the independents, and you
yeah.
convince those folks who are disenfranchised, and you go into these communities and you spend time in these communities, right?
Mm,
And when you spend time in this community, you understand the issues and you bring forth the issues,
yes.
and help where you can. And that's the thing that you're going to persuade people that you're serious, right? I remember there's a counselor, I forgot his name now. He's an MP, but he was a counselor first. Mr. Marshall. Mr. Marshall was an MP.
Yeah.
And the reason why Mr. Marshall never lost an election
Yes.
was because Mr. Marshall always, hold on,
Sorry.
I gotta plug my computer and it's gonna die.
Yeah.
Um, hopefully it does not. Mr. Marshall
Yes.
lived in the community and he knew every person in that community. If a
Mm,
person needed a pair of shoes, he knew. If the
mm,
road needs a fix, he knew because he walked and drive on those roads, right?
yes.
And he was able to do this. And that's where you have to get down to the brass tacks of what people want. Give me
You
a
found
second.
it. You found it. Okay, no problem. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Um, while O'Neill is getting his phone is charged up. It is a very interesting bit here that we are talking about, and I'm not going to make this show very long because I'm going to keep it within an hour and a half or so, or less, hour and after. But the things we're talking about as to why people don't feel interested in voting. And thank you so much, Cool Breeze, for your words there. Feeling uninformed. Some individuals may feel inadequately informed about the candidates, their policies, or the issues at stake in an election. Without sufficient knowledge, they may hesitate to cast a vote, fearing that they might make an uninformed or misguided decision. I have pushed and I've advocated um, before the election that each and every candidate should actually sign up to the 7 principles of public life.
Mm.
Integrity, honesty, selflessness, objectivity, you know, and these factors, and follow something to a high level. Because it's like the people, the people are crying for something different, but yet at the same time, the old guards are saying, "I saw we stay, man. I saw we stay. We love them thing. Love hanging off the buses and so like that, which unfortunately you lose a lady's leg and you lost a life. You got to change his game. You got to go
No,
up a
you,
different level, man.
you gotta change the game. And I'll just use one piece um, that I picked up from the local government debate last week.
Mm,
And we sort of touched on it about what's local government, what's their responsibility. The markets, right? If you're in a Jamaica, doesn't matter what town, what city, you're touched by the market because that's where you go buy your produce.
Yes.
Families, they go there, they sell, right? You have heard about the coronation market, the Jubilee market, all these market, the South market, the
Yes.
Brownstone market, right? These are massive where people from community will come.
Yes.
In some places, look at the state of these markets, right? Simple thing. This is just a simple infrastructure. Look at the state of the markets, and it tells you how connected you are to the people. Because this is a place that people go. If you go to Coronation Market, I remember my grandmother used to leave on, I think it was a Wednesday or Thursday night. She'll drive to Kingston. She'll stay overnight in Kingston
Yes.
until and come back Saturday, right?
Yes.
And many women, which are mainly women, do this over and over every week because this is how they take care of their kids.
Yes.
And if you go into any of these market, look at the state of the market. The Spalding market, for example, that market has been in development for the last 10 years, right? And you look at these things, and these are things that if you're a new political party, that's a simple thing that you could go highlight and figure out how to get funding to go help. Because these are bread and butter kitchen table issues that people care about.
Yes.
Right? Garbage pickup, sanitation. Right? Tell people how you're going to do that.
Yes.
How you're going to make sure that when their kids go to school, they have a meal. Because, as Damien Crawford said, if you're hungry, you can't learn math.
Yes.
Right. So these are simple things that you could do. Go work with the principals of these schools to put stuff in place. Right. So I think, Silburn, as we're talking, you got to be persuasive. And it comes back to persuasion. It comes back to the adjectives that you've used around the disenfranchised. They're just, they hear the same hymn over and over and over again from politicians, and they just tune it out. Have you ever heard that song? And you've heard the song so much you just can't. If that song get turned off, you just like, and it's the same thing. You just get tuned out, right? And we need a set of leaders, and I say we because I am super connected to Jamaica. I'm there all the time. I want to see my country meet their targets.
Yes.
And we need leaders who are engaging the people and pulling those people who have been disenfranchised, or those people who have just said, you know what, politician hasn't done anything for me, so therefore I'm not voting.
Yes.
Be
Yes.
inspiring. Get to the young people, because the interesting thing, if you look at the breakdown of the electorate, Silburn, is mostly women that votes. And I was reading an article that said under 30 years old pretty much don't show up. A lot of people under 30 pretty much don't show up.
I was a university student messaged me yesterday while the president of the CCJ, Caribbean Court of Justice, was doing some lecture, and he asked me for a couple questions I can put to him, and I sent a couple questions to him, and he got response back from the president, and I asked him, say, listen, try to formulate and try to get some young people so we can talk about the whole discussion about politics. And so I'm looking forward to that in a way, because there's a clear a path in that section. But I want to pick up the point that that Nadine said. She said what she said here. Yes, fantastic idea, but are they willing to work together through? They are afraid of who will get the credit. It will be the party in power at the time of that working group. This is a bit we're talking about, and I wanted to come back to it. Will the opposition share some of the ideas with the government, and will the government work together? And I picked up something. I did look at research earlier, and it says yes, opposition parties should share their policies with the government in the interest of the nation, and there are several reasons why it is important. National interest, Primary goal of governance should be the welfare and development of the nation as a whole. By sharing their policies with the government, opposition parties contribute to a more comprehensive understanding of the challenges facing the country and potential solutions to address them. Do you see that working? Anybody? Do you see that working in Jamaica? Do you see that, Anil? Do you believe
But,
that they would do that?
but yeah, I think Nadine, point is taken that you know people are worried about who's going to get credit, but the
Yes.
question that one must ask themselves: why you're a politician? You're a
Yes.
politician to serve the people.
Yes.
You're a politician. You get into politics not to get rich. You get into politics because you want to serve the people. And if you have ideas,
Yes.
regardless of which political party is in power, put forth
Mm.
those ideas because when Jamaica win, everybody win.
Everybody
Right?
wins.
That's the thing. When Jamaica win, and if every one of our politicians have that mindset that says, look, it doesn't matter the color, but my color is the Jamaican people. And when we
Yes.
put forth policy and the Jamaican people win, it's a win for
Everybody.
everybody. It's
Yeah.
the upward movement of our country. So we have to move away from
Mm.
this mindset that who gets credit, right? If you have a political party in power, figure out how to work with that political party.
Yes.
If you're in the opposition, put forth your point of view, right? Go sit down with
Mm.
the other side and come up with ideas. Because if the Jamaican people win, then everybody wins. So we need to move away from that mindset about credit.
When the UK we had the coalition government with Tweedledee, Tweedledum, that was Ian Clegg, Nick Clegg, and David Cameron. Nick Clegg as the deputy prime minister. One of the great political punters in the UK. I forget his name. I always like watching him. He's always spot on, and he can read elections, and he say, "This is what the people are saying." That's what he comes out and say. This is what the people are saying, and what came out of that election there with Nick Clegg and David Cameron, where they were back and forth trying to agree way forward, and I saw the different movements. This is what he said: the people do not trust each one of you alone to do it. The people wanted you to work together. That
Yes,
that is what that was what was read. And I go to number two, collaborative governance. Effective governance often requires collaboration and cooperation across party lines. By sharing their policies, opposition parties can foster a spirit of collaboration with the ruling government, leading to a more inclusive and effective policy-making process. But only for that to be achieved, one ambition must not be to be the party in power forever. Your
yeah,
ambition must be seen that that street, those people should be getting better off than me.
exactly. You have to do right by people and you put
Yeah.
policy. And that's why I believe, right? And we'll see how the whole constitutional reform plays out. I do believe you need local government reform
Mm.
because the reason you need that, think of a scenario where you could bundle a couple of different communities together, create a
Yes.
mayor system, a system of mayors, and then you have local elected representatives that are doing the people's business,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Then at the end of the day, whoever the prime minister becomes immaterial because your
Mm.
local representatives are doing the job to make sure education, sanitation, and health, roads, infrastructure, etc.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's one of the reasons I'm a big proponent of local government reform
Yes.
in a way that will benefit the people. Because if you're a person in you name the community, you probably
Mm.
see the prime minister once,
Mm.
right? Probably see him on television. But in terms of seeing, but the people you're going to see on a day-to-day basis is your local government representative, right?
Case on point, Ania. Case on point. I'm the neighborhood watch chair of my street here, and I'm a good friend with the MP. She lives on the corner there. But any issues, or if people in the WhatsApp group complain about something, I'm going to call Mark, the local the councillor, or call a couple of them. Mark is the key person. So therefore, there's a good rapport when we when we block off some streets or some sections, we all got together, put some money together to make some gates that block off certain areas. But there was a rapport with the local government councillors. I stood for office a couple of times as a local government candidate. But because of that, I get to know all of these guys. And guess what? They're all labor.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're all labor. Every one of them is labor. And they always say, Silburn is the only conservative friend we have. You know what I mean? Because we work together for the betterment of the community and not seeing party colors.
And that's
And
what you got to
that's,
do.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I think that's how you actually um, build back the trust is when your work, they feel you're working in their interests and not your political interests, right? You know, when you have a politician, and I've seen it not only in Jamaica but other places where that politician was barely middle class, and you see it in Jamaica, and you hear it when, and that person went in, and you hear the stories, and you hear people comment like, well, no, no, all of a sudden with politics, he become a rich man, right?
They're
Um,
MAGA.
and,
They're MAGA before. They're MAGA
yeah,
as king.
exactly. Right. So now it's like a lot of people are saying that you're in there to enrich yourself, and I think that's the reason. I think you see people are disenfranchised. But the thing that I also believe, I think we might be shocked. I think on Monday, is it Monday? Yeah, on
Yeah,
Monday, I think we might be shocked that people are going to turn out because somehow I think people want their voice to be heard,
yes.
and I think you know even with the story Nadine, the one that I've heard, I just have this gut feeling that people are gonna come out because people have this pent up energy, and they're gonna go vote. Who they vote for is gonna be interesting because one of the things I foresee, and this is sort of, I could be totally wrong, but
Why do you
if the
say I've
current,
got a dream? You can say I've got a dream.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If the current ruling party actually wins the local government election, I
Yes,
could I could have a sense that they'll turn around and call a general election right away.
I believe it. I believe so as well. The momentum is there, if anything, and that's going to be very interesting. And I'm saying, based on my different videos, I'm saying I'm believing God for 70% turnout. I said, come on, guys, don't let me down, man. I'm making a bet here. 70% turnout for the election.
Yeah.
People are gonna say, Silburn, there you go again, pipe dream. People keep telling me I'm having all these pipe dreams. I said, well, listen, guys, if I got a pipe dream, you guys need to smoke the pipe and leave me alone.
Because you know what I think also you're going to have turnout. Local government is local, and
Yes,
most of the councillors are from the communities,
yes.
right? And I do believe they're going to come out, but I also believe that the minute it's going to be a back-to-back election, it's going to be a snap election real
Mm,
quick,
mm.
and it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. And then this brings up the whole bit about constitutional reform and about fixed date election, which the prime minister did promise some time ago. Because when they got these in place, people can plan. Because I know a few people who wanted to travel, and they were holding off traveling because they didn't want the snap election to happen. Well, because they know they were waiting for this local government election to be called, and uh, and that is why I'm still pushing this point that the government of Jamaica need to put something in place that people can vote from overseas. I'm not talking this is, and I'm not talking right now about overseas voting. I'm talking about the Nadine Barrett might be traveling to the UK or traveling to America, but all of a sudden Andrew Holness has called an election. She shouldn't be dashing back to Jamaica and cutting off that holiday, which was 4 weeks or 5 weeks, to get to vote in an election. She should be able to go to the embassy, the consulate, and just vote. Just like how everything I've got, you what do you call it? Two factor, all these two factor.
Authentication.
Yeah, come on, man. I mean, come on. I guess these guys don't. They're scared. I think maybe they're scared that the diaspora might get into it and start to create rumpus with it and so like that. But fixed date is very important. fixed parties agree, but when they're in power, neither of them do it, not put it in place. Well, I think we have covered some grounds on O'Neill tonight in this. And just to put on the last bit regarding the reason why people don't no, the collaboration bit. Um, the public interest should be paramount in governance. That should be paramount. Sharing policies with the government, democratic norms in a healthy democracy, political parties should engage in dialogue and cooperation for the greater good
Yeah.
of a nation.
So,
Problem solving, you know? You're saying on it.
so the one thing, so in terms of Jamaicans who are on the voters list, if they're overseas, they can vote. They could do an absentee ballot at the embassy and vote. Actually, when I was doing some research, there's probably about 5% of the electorate, I think, reside overseas
Yes.
that are on the voters list and they can vote. And
Yeah.
the last election, the number was about 30,000 that vote. So if you, but I think the infrastructure is probably only in the UK, the US, and Canada.
Yes.
I think to your point, larger point is that if I'm in, you name the country, right, I should be able to do that. But
Yes.
there is some mechanism, but I don't know how widely. It's outside of sort of the three big countries where we have a large Jamaican
Yes.
population.
Canada, USA, and the UK.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool Breeze said, all great things start as a vision and a dream that manifests into reality with your energy and vibe. Martin Luther King said, I have a dream.
Yeah.
You know, yes, you're saying something?
We need inspiring leaders.
We need inspiring leaders.
That's what we don't have.
Yes.
We need inspiring leader. I don't know who just brought up Martin Luther King, right? He was an inspiring leader, right? And he picked the things that he think matters to his people. And, he walked the talk, right? And there's the same thing, right? In Jamaica, you need inspiring leader. And somehow you mentioned it is, the school has to play a role in how you get people back into learning about civic, how you have folks, at the local community level, bring back the spirited debates like my grandfather and his friends used to have about politics in the rum bar, and you sit in the corner and you just hear them going on for hours around politics. You don't have that anymore.
Yes.
Right. So as a young kid, I used to sit in the corner and just listen, and my grandfather and his friends, they're just going back. Sometimes they get heated. And, some one guy is trying to convince why he should vote for the PNP, this guy, why the JLP. And it was just back on back. Right. And I used to love those times to just hear, they drink a little white rum and just get spirited. But you don't have those things anymore.
Well, it is similar to my father as well. He's always talking politics, and I'm always there as the youngest boy, follow back on him and stuff like that. Yeah. Just go to my grandmother's house, and they're always talking about politics. It was very interesting, as you rightly say, and you learn a lot from it at the same time, and something that I'd want to somebody said, "Oh, he's a gentleman in dark." Somebody sent me a message and said, "He's the gentleman in dark is O'Neill
Steve
Cross."
Jobs.
Is Steve Jobs. There is a point that Martin Luther King said, and I leave on this bit. It talks about the fierce urgency of now. The fierce is more than a call to action, right? A call to acknowledge truth. There's no justice without truth. And I think the first urgency of now is that I believe the time is now for, and when I say people rise up, people sometimes I think I'm talking rising up in demonstration, but rising up within themselves to take control back of destiny of their home, Jamaica. Because what sometimes come across is that the people no more of a say. It is left to the leaders. But the people have got to be able to, the shapers, and I believe the middle class has let down Jamaica in a lot of ways, because the middle class has somewhat left it. Because when you look and see the people who are running up and down, they're not really the middle class to a certain extent. I don't know if a lot of the middle class are a part of this group which don't want to get involved or can't bother because I'm all right. Is it?
Yeah.
Anybody can?
And it's just that you're talking, when you say, you remember the community centers,
Yes.
Not every, but majority communities that I used to visit have a community center. And
Yes.
it was a center where people used to go, and you might have stowing in school, you might have crusher in school, but you
And I've
also
talk
have,
and sip. And I've talk and sip.
yeah. So yeah, but you don't have those local places anymore where people could gather in
Yes.
mass and talk and have debates. And I wonder, who is that inspiring leader that is going to go do that, right?
Mm.
And I think there's value to connecting with the people at their level, right?
Yes.
And go meet them, hear them, listen, right?
Yes.
And then formulate a plan of how you're going to bring sort of changes so they
Yes.
are inspired for you. They're inspired for you
Yes.
to be their representative, because
Mm.
if we're saying the same song over and over and just using different words, at some point in time, people are smart enough, they're going to realize that there's a Jamaican term that just slipped me. When you tell someone you're giving him something, you give him something different, there's a Jamaican
Yes.
word. Um,
Some
and I
fine.
think you just have to get,
Some fine. Some fine, man.
no, it's where, like, if I was going to give you something, I decide to give you something. There's a Jamaican term for it. I don't remember.
Um,
What is
something
it?
lick for something, or I
Yeah,
don't.
it's like I say I was gonna give you
Yeah.
$1, and I'll give you 10 cents, and
Yeah.
there's a Jamaican term that,
I know the saying. Somebody maybe can help us with that.
yeah.
You
But
yeah, go on. Yeah.
no, but I think we'll see what Monday. One thing I hope, let's make sure it's peaceful.
Yes.
Discuss, you vote, and let's have a peaceful election. The world is watching our little
Yes.
country. Hopefully that people are inspired by the Bob Marley movie.
I was gonna say
And
that because the spotlight is on Jamaica now as
yeah,
a
the
result.
spotlight is on Jamaica. I was actually in CVS,
Yes.
and the interesting thing, in little writing, it says unauthorized.
Yes.
There's a dossier of Bob Marley, right,
Mm.
in CVS, and it sold out. There was only one copy left.
Yes.
Right. So the spotlight is on Jamaica for a positive way. Let's make this election positive, and whoever wins,
You're gonna say,
whether,
"Let make Jamaica great again." I thought.
yeah, 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 whoever wins, let make it a moment for the Jamaican people to start building trust in their political representative.
Yes.
And I would say the
Yeah.
politician, engage. Don't be this cycle that you
Yes.
only engage your people when there's
Whenever.
an election.
Yes. And I really love to at some point really get some student of politics to be a part of that process, some young people, not to create any party, but just to the whole civic aspects. We just like Nadine Barnett says, those were the days. Well, we're gonna bring back better days. Let's bring back some better days. It takes two to tango, and it takes three to make it happen. But anyway, good on that one. There's something breaking up though. Ochres get big. You know that Ochres get big on the map
I
again.
thought you can't go with you anymore.
well, well, well. What has happened is that everybody keeps saying playing Ghana, Jamaica.
Oh yeah. Because American Airlines are
Play,
gonna go to Ian Fleming's.
playing Ghana Ochi. And I keep saying, guys, it is not Ochi. But they're not calling it
St. Mary. Yes. Yeah, February is from Miami to Ian Fleming's.
So
Yep.
yes, so I thought the plane landed. This happened already, but somebody said what happened is that this is the inaugural flight because the first one was
This is the first flight. It did today.
Yeah.
Because the interesting thing, I looked on American Airlines, because before you couldn't buy, now you could actually buy. But it's from Miami though. It's from Miami to Ian Fleming's.
So hold on. Why they keep saying it's Ochres? Everybody just wants to say Ochi, isn't it?
Because it's close to Ochi.
Boscobel, St. Mary, and my
It,
Virgin Online is even sending me another one. He said,
so it's also for folks. The
sorry,
airport
one
code
second.
is
One second.
OCJ.
OCJ. Look at that.
Yeah,
Even the pilots have a Jamaica flag.
it might be Jamaican.
Yeah. Oh no, there you go. There you go.
I created history. It's very historical. It's my birthday today, and it was a fantabulous trip coming down here.
All right, thank you.
And this view is out of this
Oh yeah,
world.
the truck.
All right,
Yeah,
thank you
that's
very much. You planning on using back this flight again?
Is it O'Neill?
No, normally when there's an art, they use a fire truck to spray the water over.
Okay, I thought it was it was overheating or something like that.
No, it's just. Let me see. No, actually, no. You could actually get flight there from Miami.
From Miami.
Yeah, it's from Miami. I don't know how often they're gonna fly, but it's OC. There is it. Yeah, you could go there.
He said Daryl Vaz is hiding Western St. Mary MP Bobby. Now I'm looking at some pictures there. Virgin has sent me,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
So that's good. That's good. So now you could, because now you have a third airport, so you could take off some of the traffic from Montego Bay.
Yes.
So that's a good thing.
And therefore what that means is one can, it'd be great, just, well, that's the thing, you guys in the States much easier, but if you're from England, you can get something go bam straight into Ochi there, straight. Just
Yeah, now if you just think about it, like now you could fly into, because it's in St. Mary actually, so you fly, and if you go to Kingston, you're closer to Kingston. So it's gonna be good.
Yes. I just want to flag up just one picture here before we go. There's one picture which I just saw here. Where is it?
This lady in black, she couldn't wear like a colorful dress rather than a black dress.
She's her birthday. Maybe could have finished. She got it. She says her birthday.
That's what I'm like. It's her birthday. She in black. She must mourn in.
Yeah. Where is it? There's a picture here. There's a picture there. Somebody say, that Vaz is hiding Bobby Montague. So the captain, we're right. The captain could be a Jamaican there.
Yeah. So you have so now Vaz, that's Stewart, Adam Stewart.
Adam Stewart, yeah.
And I think Vaz is the transportation minister, but
yes,
Montague, not even like, am I try? Should I go this side? So it's nice.
Yeah. Well, as I said, hold on, O'Neill, where are you? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I'm trying to get rid of this thing. Yeah. Big things are gone. Big things are gone.
Yeah.
You did predict something. You said that.
I never predict. I forecast.
Yeah, you forecasted something to say that Jamaica is going to be this hub in some time in the future there. And
they're going to be a massive hub. I think once you put the infrastructure in place, I think that's why, if they solve the crime issue, man, it would do such a great job.
Yes.
In sort of injecting another, what they call a dose, adrenaline into the Jamaican economy, and it's like just taking care of that one thing.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, Nadine. So I heard a parliamentary explain that more persons recognize the name Otrius. That's why they say that's where the plane lands. That's what someone just said to me earlier. Yeah. That Otrius is more recognized. Everybody's just because I come from Ochi, everybody want to jump on the bandwagon. I mean,
I thought you were gonna say, you know what, Ochi invade St. Mary and take that piece of land.
Original Ochi man. And thank you, Cool Breeze, for coming on, and those on TikTok as well for contribution. Those on Instagram as well, and Facebook. And thank you, Nadine, so much for that. And
next week,
mm,
let me see something. We might be able to do the show together. I don't know. Hold on.
yeah,
Let's see. Let me see what time I get in.
when are you in the UK?
Oh no, I'm not. So I get in. No, I get in Sunday morning.
Again, Sunday morning.
Mhm.
Okay, no problem. All right.
All
Well,
right, buddy.
anyway, have a good one. Peace
All
out.
right.
Yell up Bush. Sorry, yell up Trump.
I mean Biden.
By the way, there's another lady there who is going on hard. The one who said she's gonna confiscate all his money in New York. That's another lady there, another black lady there.
Oh yeah. And then there's another lady in Chicago that's going viral.
Well, she's going up to Trump as well.
No, she's going viral. Oh, you mean the lady in New York who
Lawyer lady.
the criminal case,
Yes.
the fraud case, which it's an interesting ruling, but I think that a lot of the folks in the business community are actually really looking at it because there's large precedent implication for this one.
Indeed.
I don't care, what people talk about Trump. This is not about Trump. It's just a matter of once you set a precedent for something like this, a lot of businesses are then, starting to think about like, wow, if I can get sued because there's no crime, nobody has made what do you call it now? An alleged the banks didn't lose money, they made money. So you get to a very slippery slope in terms of if you're a business, you're like, wow, this is something that could happen to us.
And also the gun business has left New York, isn't it?
It left New York. And the interesting thing also, there was another case that came out of New York. I forget the name of the gentleman, but he was also found liable in a civil suit. So you see a lot of these cases coming out of New York. Because it's going to be interesting to see how this all play out.
Right. Interesting days ahead. Well, thank you, O'Neill. Peace out.
All right, buddy.
All right. Cheers, man.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye. Thanks. Well, ladies and gentlemen, well, thank you so much for joining on the show. Thank you, Nadine, as well. Thank you for everyone. And tomorrow night, I was supposed to be having Miss Daniel Archer, but I believe in light of the elections, maybe we'll just put that on the back burner, call also admins, and maybe pick that up next week. She's from National Integrity Organization, and as well, Matunda Makula, former public defender. We're supposed to have some conversation, but I believe we're going to be doing this after the election and have another review of the election as well, because the results will be time for conversation. What is the people saying? And have a reflection as much as possible. Join me on Thursday night for the next in review. So many things happening in the UK. Will the speaker be there by the end of this week? Well, I don't know. Will the speaker be there by Monday? Sir Lindsay Hoyle. We're talking about the UK now with what has happened. That's going to be very interesting. And of course, one MP for the Conservative Party has been whipped, or the whip has been removed from him, meaning to say he's not standing as a Conservative MP at present, because he said that Sadiq Khan, who is the mayor of London, as Islamophobia or whatever the UK to a certain extent. So many things are happening in politics, and politics is moving way forward. Okay, so have a good night. God bless you, and peace out. And we'll see you around at the next time in the. Okay, good. Thank you. Bye bye.